3 technicals, that's where Caitlin Clark sits right now, in the middle of a season that was supposed to be about growth, dominance, and the continued rise of women's basketball into the mainstream spotlight it's been chasing for decades. 3 technicals and 5 more separate her from something no one in the league office wants to say out loud, but everyone is quietly doing the math on. A forced absence. A suspension, the most recognizable face in women's sports, watching a game from the tunnel in street clothes because she said 3 words into the air after a referee swallowed his whistle. And here's the part that makes this story so much bigger than a fine schedule or a disciplined memo: the ladder she's climbing wasn't built by her opponents. It wasn't constructed by rival coaches or rival fans or anyone. Outside 645 Fifth Avenue in New York City, Cathy Engelbert's office built it, her task force designed the rungs. Her officiating overhaul tightened the bolts, and the player now 3 steps up that ladder, with months of season still ahead of her, is the same player whose name is single-handedly pulling this league into arenas and onto broadcast deals it couldn't have dreamed about 5 years ago. 5 more whistles, and the league suspends the very product it's been selling. That's not hyperbole, that's arithmetic, and before you can understand where this goes, you need to understand exactly how we got here, because the story of Caitlin Clark's technical fouls isn't really about Caitlin Clark losing her temper. It's about an office that spent one winter making 2 very specific decisions, then released both of them into the same season, aimed at the same player, without apparently thinking through what happens when the math catches up. So, let's start with Thursday night. Let's start with 3 words. One arm swing, and the moment this whole thing became impossible to ignore. It was the 3rd quarter at Gainbridge Fieldhouse, Indiana's own building, in front of Indiana's own fans. The Fever had built a 19-point lead, the kind of cushion that should make a game feel safe, should let a team breathe a little, should make the 4th quarter feel like a victory lap, and then it evaporated, not slowly, not through some gradual momentum shift that gave Indiana time to adjust. It was gone, and the building felt it, and Caitlin Clark felt it too. She drives, she gets the shot swatted clean away, she looks toward the official standing right there, close enough to see it, close enough to call it. And here's nothing. No whistle, no acknowledgement, just silence, while the play moves on and Indiana's lead keeps shrinking. So she does what competitors do, she swings her arm through the air in frustration and says it out loud. 3 words, that's a foul. The Prime Video broadcast caught it clean, no ambiguity, no lip reading required. You could hear it clearly, see exactly what it was, and understand immediately that what you were watching was not a meltdown, not a tantrum, not a player losing control of herself in a critical moment. It was a reaction. A split-second, entirely human reaction to a call that wasn't made, in a game that was slipping away from a player who has been swallowing a lot of silence for a lot of games now. Technical foul number 3. Under this season's discipline structure, that whistle costs $500, but the fine is almost beside the point, because the fine was never what made this moment matter. What made it matter is the number 3, and the number that follows it on the ladder, 8, which carries something no fine schedule can replicate and no performance can buy back. An automatic 1-game suspension, no appeals that stop the clock, no exceptions written in for high-profile players or primetime matchups or sold-out buildings. The league has pulled that trigger before, and it does not ask the player's schedule before it does. 5 technicals sit between Caitlin Clark and that trapdoor. 5. In a season that still has most of its games left to play, with a competitive fire that has never once dimmed because the moment got hard, the next chance for the whistle comes Tuesday night, when Toronto walks into Gainbridge at 7 Eastern, but before Tuesday, before the next game and the next close call and the next moment of silence from a referee that might cost her a $500 reaction, you need to understand who designed this system, because the answer is stranger and more ironic than almost anything else happening in professional sports right now. Watch what Cathy Engelbert does, not what she says, what she does. Last offseason, the WNBA commissioner created something called an officiating task force. The framing was collaborative, players at the table, coaches at the table, everyone with a voice in how the league calls its games going forward. The stated goal was to clean things up, address the physicality, make the game safer, fairer, more consistent. Front office sports tracked what came out the other side of that process, and the numbers are stark. Through the season's opening stretch, foul calls jumped from 17.5 per team per game to over 22. Free throws climbed from 18 a game to 23.5 separate times in the first Week and a half of the season, a single team shot 25 or more free throws in one game, last season, that happened 25 times across the entire year. In the October 1st days of the new officiating era, it happened half as often as it did in the previous 12 months. Now, you might expect the coaches who sat on that task force to be pleased with those results, except at least one of them wasn't. And she was one of the people who helped build it. Cheryl Reeve, head coach of the Minnesota Lynx, sat in those meetings, contributed to those conversations, and then watched what the new whistle actually produced. Her public reaction was direct. "We talked about unnecessary physicality. We didn't say we want to call marginal fouls. We never brought that up." The coach who helped design the engine was surprised by how fast it ran. Then there's Stephanie White. Indiana's head coach also sat on that task force. She also had a voice in shaping what came out of it. And according to reporting on those conversations, White asked the officials to call everything. Said the league needed to overcorrect in order to find the right level. She asked for consistency. She pushed for a stricter standard. She got one. What she also got was an Indiana Fever team that, heading into last Thursday, was committing the most fouls in the league and surrendering the most free throw attempts in the league. The coach who asked for the overcorrection is now coaching the team that's being overcorrected the hardest. Whether that's irony or consequence depends on how charitable you're feeling, but the task force was only thing 1. Thing 2 was quieter, and in some ways, it has sharper teeth. The same winter that produced the officiating overhaul also produced a revised fine structure, and the league was not particularly loud about it, per reporting from front office Sports and Yahoo Sports. Technical foul fines increased from $200 to $500, 2.5 times the old rate, with a new $1,000 tier stacked behind it for repeat incidents and the automatic one-game suspension. Waiting at number 8 like a wall at the end of a warning track, someone in the comments is already composing the rebuttal right now. Player salaries went up this year too, so $500 hurts less than $200 used to, and that's technically accurate. The math on the fine itself is gentler in real terms than it was before. But that argument misses the point so completely that engaging with it too long actually does the league a favor, because it lets the office hide the real mechanism behind a number that sounds dramatic but isn't. The dollars were never the teeth are the eighth whistle. There is no salary large enough to buy back a suspended game. No fine Caitlin Clark can pay, no performance she can put up, no post-game quote gracious enough to put her back on the floor. Once the league decides to sit her down, the money is a warning, the escalating tiers are a countdown. And the suspension is the thing at the end of the countdown that the league does not negotiate, does not defer, and does not care about the broadcast schedule before triggering. Read the 2 off-season moves together, because separately they're just policy decisions. Together, they're a system. More whistles. Rebuild the officiating standards, call more fouls, tighten the margin for physicality, pricier reactions. Raise the cost of noticing the whistle out loud, stack the tiers, set the ceiling point. 1 office, 1 off-season. Both decisions moving in the same direction, and the player most exposed to both of them, the one playing for the team committing the most fouls, in a league now calling more fouls than it ever has before, is the one whose face is on every broadcast, every highlight reel, and every sellout that the league is using to prove it's arrived. Look at where the new whistle landed hardest, and the picture gets uncomfortable fast. Heading into Thursday night's game, Indiana was leading the league in fouls committed, more than 24 a night. They were also leading the league in free throws surrendered, nearly 26 attempts per game, with opponents converting 80% of those trips. Not second most, not somewhere in the top 5, the most on both sides in the first season of Engelbert's rebuilt officiating structure. That's not a coincidence, and it's not bad luck. That's what happens when you apply a stricter standard uniformly to a team whose style generates more contact than almost anyone else in the league. But no single night captured what this new reality looks like in practice better than the game 6 days before Thursday. Brooklyn, New York Liberty, a matchup that, on paper, was supposed to be a measuring stick game for a Fever team trying to prove it could compete with the East's best. What it became instead was something that had analysts and fans staring at the box score, refreshing it, trying to make the numbers make sense. New York shot 40 free throws, Indiana shot 15. Breanna Stewart, one player, one night, went 18 of 21 from the free throw iron by herself, a career high in makes. Her team shot 36% from the field. They went 2 of 18 from three-point range. 2 of 18. They could not throw the ball in the ocean from half the floor, and it didn't matter, because the game was being decided 70 feet from the basket. One whistle at a time, in a way that had nothing to do with the shot-making that everyone came to watch. Clark spent crunch time on the bench carrying 5 fouls, not because she was playing recklessly, but because the environment, the New officiating structure created had turned late game minutes into a minefield for any defender. Trying to stay engaged, Aaliyah Boston picked up a technical as the third quarter ended, and then afterward, a Liberty rookie did something remarkable in its candor. She told reporters, openly, into microphones, with the casual confidence of someone describing a scouting report that worked exactly as designed, that they knew Clark was carrying 5 fouls, so they just kept attacking her, they hunted her, and they said so out loud. That's not game.